Some places sit only miles away, yet remain utterly unreachable, sealed not by ocean or mountain, but by ink on a map. Stretching 250 kilometers across hills and river valleys, the DMZ formed along the 1953 armistice line rather than any natural feature. Decades without human disturbance turned it into an accidental wildlife sanctuary, home to rare cranes and Asiatic black bears. Its temperate climate shifts sharply between humid summers and frigid winters. Guard posts, tank traps, and buried mines line its edges, making it simultaneously one of Earth's most dangerous and most ecologically preserved strips of land. Siachen sits within the Karakoram Range, carved by glacial erosion over millions of years, reaching elevations above 5,400 meters. Its climate is brutally cold, with temperatures plunging below -50°C and avalanches a constant threat. Sparse ecosystems cling to lower valleys while the upper glacier remains lifeless ice. Soldiers stationed here face frostbite more often than enemy fire, making this remote Himalayan frontier a monument to endurance rather than conquest. The buffer zone winds through Nicosia's limestone basin, following a ceasefire line drawn hastily across flat Mediterranean terrain. Abandoned shopfronts and rusted cars remain untouched for 50 years, creating an urban time capsule. The climate is hot and dry, typical of the eastern Mediterranean. Wild birds and stray cats now dominate the empty streets, while UN patrols monitor a border that cuts directly through homes, churches, and even a historic airport runway. Built across the Sahara's flat gravel plains and dune fields, the berm was constructed with sand, stone, and landmines rather than concrete. Its arid climate brings scorching days and cold nights, with minimal rainfall supporting only hardy desert scrub. Nomadic Sahrawi communities once roamed freely across this land before the barrier fragmented their migration routes. Today it remains one of the most heavily mined regions on Earth, largely invisible to global attention despite its staggering scale. The river originates in Colorado's Rockies, cutting through limestone canyons shaped by millions of years of erosion before reaching the Gulf of Mexico. Its banks support cottonwood forests and desert wildlife adapted to extreme heat. The climate ranges from arid scrubland to humid delta. Sections of steel fencing now interrupt the river's natural course, creating a stark contrast between untouched canyon wilderness and heavily surveilled crossing points nearby. Built across limestone hills shaped by ancient tectonic uplift, the barrier follows a route that rarely matches internationally recognized borders. The Mediterranean climate supports terraced olive groves cultivated for thousands of years. Concrete sections rise 8 meters high in urban areas, while wire fencing crosses rural terrain. This layered landscape of biblical history and modern concrete captures one of the world's longest-running territorial disputes in a single winding structure. This 48-kilometer chain formed from coral reefs and sand deposits accumulated over shifting sea levels since the last ice age. Shallow waters, rarely exceeding 1 meter, make navigation nearly impossible for large vessels. The tropical climate supports rich marine biodiversity, including dugongs and sea turtles in surrounding lagoons. Ancient Hindu and Buddhist traditions reference this land bridge in legend, while satellite imagery confirms its geological reality as a natural, half-submerged frontier. Perched on rocky headlands formed by ancient volcanic and sedimentary activity, these enclaves overlook the Strait of Gibraltar. The Mediterranean climate brings mild winters and dry summers. Steep coastal cliffs meet dense triple-layered fencing reinforced with sensors and barbed wire. Migrants attempting crossings face one of the most fortified borders on Earth, transforming a picturesque coastal frontier into a symbol of Europe's tightly guarded southern edge. Nestled in the forested foothills of the Caucasus Mountains, formed by tectonic collision between the Arabian and Eurasian plates, this region features rugged valleys and alpine meadows. Its climate ranges from humid lowlands to snowy highlands. Russian-backed forces periodically move fence lines further into Georgian territory, a practice locals call borderization. Farmers have lost fields overnight, illustrating how invisible political lines can physically consume land without a single shot fired. Formed by the ongoing collision of the Indian and Eurasian plates, this frontier runs across some of the youngest and highest mountains on Earth. Glacial valleys and alpine deserts define the terrain, with bitterly cold, oxygen-thin air. No formal demarcation exists, leading to periodic standoffs between soldiers armed only with sticks and stones, per treaty restrictions. This ambiguous, ever-shifting line remains one of the most geopolitically volatile borders in Asia. Flat grasslands and seasonal wetlands define a baie, shaped by the White Nile's ancient floodplain sediments. Tropical wet-dry seasons bring monsoon floods followed by dust-dry droughts. Cattle-herding Dinka and Miseria communities have used this land for grazing corridors for generations, complicating any fixed border. Beneath the soil, oil reserves raise the stakes further. Despite referendums promised by international agreements, a baie remains a geographic and political limbo to this day. Formed by ancient supercontinent breakup and buried under kilometers of compacted ice, Antarctica holds 70% of Earth's fresh water. Its polar climate produces the coldest recorded temperatures on the planet. 7 nations claim overlapping wedge-shaped sectors, though the Antarctic Treaty suspends all sovereignty disputes. Penguin colonies and seals dominate its coastlines, while the interior remains a stark white desert, making this the only continent governed entirely by diplomatic compromise. Formed by the rain shadow effect of the Andes, the Atacama receives virtually no rainfall, some areas untouched by rain for centuries. Salt flats and volcanic peaks define the terrain, shaped by ongoing tectonic subduction. Its thin air and extreme UV exposure mimic Martian conditions, attracting astronomers and rover testing scientists alike. This tree point, marked by a simple concrete monument, quietly separates 3 countries across one of the most desolate and scientifically valuable landscapes on the planet. Formed by Niger Delta sediment deposits, Bakassi's terrain consists of dense mangrove swamps and shifting waterways prone to seasonal flooding. Its equatorial climate sustains rich fish stocks that once supported thousands of fishing families. Following a 2002 International Court of Justice ruling, sovereignty transferred from Nigeria to Cameroon, forcing mass relocations. This rare case of a peaceful legal border shift highlights how geography and international law can redraw a nation's map without a single soldier advancing. These lakes formed within a tectonic depression flanked by limestone mountains, fed by underground springs and seasonal rainfall. The temperate climate supports rare pelican colonies and endemic fish species found nowhere else. Albania, Greece, and North Macedonia share these waters, once complicated by a long-standing dispute over the latter's national name. The 2018 Prespa Agreement finally resolved tensions, proving that even the most stubborn invisible borders can eventually dissolve through diplomacy. Formed by ancient river deposition across the Amazon basin, this tree point sits within one of Earth's most biodiverse rainforests. Constant humidity and heavy rainfall sustain thousands of species found nowhere else on the planet. Indigenous communities have traveled freely across this region for centuries, largely unaware of the invisible lines splitting their ancestral land. Dense canopy cover makes the border almost impossible to detect from the ground, existing only on satellite maps and government charts. Formed from volcanic activity and coral reef growth over thousands of years, these islands sit atop the shallow Torres Strait separating 2 landmasses. Tropical monsoon climates bring cyclones and seasonal rains. Indigenous Torres Strait Islanders maintain traditional fishing and travel rights across the maritime border under a unique treaty. Vibrant coral ecosystems and dugong populations thrive beneath the surface, making this understated frontier one of the most culturally rich borders in the Pacific. From frozen glacier to rainforest canopies, these invisible lines shape lives everywhere. Tell us which border stunned you most.